Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another discussion. For this last chapter, we will be discussing Chapter 10, Drama. Before we start with our formal discussion, let us tackle first the three basic objectives for this chapter. Our first objective, to be able to discuss the history of drama in the Philippines. Our second objective, to be able to understand the different parts of the dramatic structure using the Freytag pyramid. And our last objective, to be able to discuss different types of drama. Now, on your PowerPoint slide, you would see a two-faced mask, which is the most famous symbol for drama. Now, what represents this two-faced mask? Now, for my last discussion in music, I have shared to you the origin of the word musike, which means art of the muses. I have showed to you the list of these 9 Greek muses, all of which children of Mnemosyne and Zeus. Now, for music, you have Euterpe as your Greek muse. Now, when it comes to drama, you have 2 Greek muses, Melpomene for tragedy and Thalia for comedy. Now, the two faces on the mask represent these 2 Greek muses. The sad-faced mask represents tragedy and therefore represents Melpomene, and the happy-faced mask represents Thalia, which is the muse for comedy. Now, originally in the Greek mythology, there is no Greek muse for tragedy. It is only Thalia, which is the muse for drama. What happened is that Hera, the first wife of Zeus, became infuriated with Melpomene because she had a child with her own father. They committed incest. And because of how angry Hera is, she cursed Melpomene to become the muse of tragedy and despair. Now, aside from these 2 muses representing the two-faced mask, the two-faced mask also originated from the concept of amphitheaters in Greece. As you can see on your PowerPoint, that is the site of the Theater of Epidaurus in Athens, Greece. Now, the stage is at the bottom part. Now, if you are an audience and you are seated at the front, you would have no problem seeing the characters on stage. The problem lies if you are seated at the farthest portion of the amphitheater. That is where the mask comes into the picture. It is for the audience at the back for them to be able to see the reactions, the gestures, and the movements of the characters. Mask was also used by the Greek actors to be able to play different characters at once. So all they have to do is to change the mask and they already have a new character. Now that I have shared to you the origin of the most famous symbol for drama, let us go back and retrace the history of drama in the Philippines. Now, the concept of drama in the Philippines started in the prehistoric times. During the prehistoric times, theater in the Philippines was in the form of indigenous rituals, verbal jousts or games, or songs and dances to praise gods. According to early chronicles, prehistoric dramas consisted of 3 elements. You have myth, there should be the concept of mimesis, and the third element, there should be spectacle. So let us go through these elements one by one. So let us start with myth. Now, myth in these mimetic performances mostly dramatize primitive rituals and epic poetry about deities and mythical legends. Now, when it comes to mimesis, mimicry, the spirit of the deities would seemingly possess a babaylan or a priestess. And the last part, spectacle. Of course, you need an audience. During the entranced state, the priestess would consume the sacrificial offering, usually in the form of pig, chicken, wine, or rice, or nuts. But usually, it is pig or chicken, and the priestess consumes the chicken or the pig raw. That is why it would draw in a lot of people, and it would create a spectacle. Now, According to Juan Plasencia, a Spanish friar of the Franciscan order, from his book Doctrina Christiana, which is the first published book here in the Philippines, an excerpt he quoted or he stated, the Babaylan seemed to shoot flames from her eyes. Her hair stood on end, a fearful sight to those beholding, and she uttered words of arrogance and superiority. During the entrance of the Spanish regime, they have introduced two forms of dramas. The first one is Sarsuela. Sarsuela is a form of musical theater that combines spoken word and song that celebrates various Catholic liturgical feasts. Now, Jugar con Fuego, or Playing with Fire, by Francisco Asenjo Barbieri, was the first Sarsuela introduced in the country in the late 1878 or early 1879. Now, one of the famous Zarzuela theaters was the Teatro Zorilla. Now, the Teatro Zorilla was once located in Calle Iris, now part of CM Recto Avenue in Manila. The theater was named after Jose Zorilla, a Spanish poet and playwright. Now, the building, which had a seating capacity of 900 people, was officially opened in August 17, 1893, and it was the venue for Spanish language and Tagalog language stage performances. But unfortunately, it was burned down, and as you can see in the interior, it mimics the grand opera houses in Europe. That is why it was such a shame that it was burned down. The other form of drama that was introduced by the Spaniards was Comedia. Comedia is also known as Moro-Moro, Linambay, or Orarakyo. Now, Moro-Moro is a secular comedy that dramatizes the war between Christians and Moro through the forbidden love between the prince and the princess. Now, the prince and the princess's characters can be interchanged. The prince can be a Christian while the princess can be a Moro, or it can be the other way around. The prince can be a Moro while the princess can be a Christian. But usually the comedy is always resolved with a non-Christian being converted to Christianity, or through his or her death, immediately followed by his or her resurrection. Now, Comedia wasn't only a plain form of entertainment for the Filipinos and the Spaniards. Comedia was used by the Spanish friars as a form of religious propaganda to convince non-Christians to convert to Christianity. And one of the principles is actually seen in Moro Moro. As you can see, the ending, or there is no alternate ending to it. It is always resolved with a non-Christian being converted to Christianity. Why is it not the other way around? Why is it not possible for the Christian to convert to Islam? As you can see, the Spanish friars clearly state that there is no higher religion than Christianity itself. Okay? So therefore, non-Christians should convert to Christianity. During the American colonization, they introduced two forms of dramas. The first one is vaudeville or vaudeville. Now, vaudeville is not a straight-up play. The theatrical performance is in fact a mix of songs, dances, comedy skits, and even magical performances. It is a straight-up variety show. Not long after, the vaudeville was interjected into comedias and zarzuelas as intermission numbers known as jamborees.